Chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Florida for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for our witnesses for hanging in there, your endurance. It is a very important topic, but I recognize that a lot of this is technical. Basically, at this point, all of my questions have been asked that I had prepared, so we're just going to freeball it here. So all of the witnesses, this is to you, but since I only have 4 minutes and 38 seconds, please keep your answers brief. In the first panel, Mr. Glass from NTIA, he was speaking about the coordination efforts between Commerce Department and the FCC, and I was looking back on my notes, and one thing that he had mentioned was, quote, they were always striving to improve. When I asked him to follow up on that about what does that mean exactly, because, you know, bureaucrats, they say that, right? What does that mean? What metric do you measure to when you talk about improvements? And he said that they don't have any. So speaking from the private side, the industry side, what would be a acceptable metric, a system by which they can measure a tangible level of improvement that increases transparency for industry, efficiencies within the system so that we can keep moving forward on this and gives the public, quite frankly, confidence that things are moving forward and we can just go right down the line?
Well, thank you very much for the question. I'd want to think about metrics. It's a really important issue, and I wouldn't want to just come up with one off the top of my head. So let us circle back with you on any specific metrics. But I will say, I think in terms of outputs that we see from the private sector side and things that have been useful, the NTA FCC MOU, the renegotiation of that, you know, we're seeing and hearing about increased communication between the FCC and NTIA, and we think that's really critical. I would say also, as we're talking about satellite streamlining and ways to make coordination, ease the burdens of coordination, make things easier, I think early communication by the FCC to NTA of satellite applications could be very useful. Most of the satellite applications need to be coordinated with federal operators, and so I think that looking at how early the FCC is sharing those applications out to NTA may be one measure we could take a look at.
Okay. Mr. Goldman.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think looking at speed of decision making is critical. When I was listening to the panel this morning, there was a lot of talk about the MOU and the increased coordination. And absolutely, this spectrum is shared not just with commercial interests, but also with federal interests. And absolutely, it needs to be coordinated with everyone who's there. But the more people you add into a coordination process, the more everything slows down. Right. And so I think making sure there's a counterbalance that as we add more parties to the coordination discussion, we're looking at longer and longer timelines. And so being able to make sure that we keep the pressure going the other way as well, that these coordination discussions are thorough and they're complete, but they're also done in a timely way.
Thank you.
I would just add, I don't know if this is a metric or not, but if you look at orbital debris, kind of the regulation of orbital debris, I don't know, there's maybe 5 agencies, maybe more than 5, that are involved in some aspect of that. And the jurisdictional, kind of land grabs on that, in that topic, are not efficient. And so there should be some, I don't know what this coordination or clarification of who's in charge of what in the U.S. government, I think would be very useful to have.
That's a good one. I like that.
And I'd just like to share that the FCC has, in fact, recently required an NTIA data form for its filers, especially of experimental licenses, which effectively documents the technical parameters, power, modulation schemes to assess interference into its network, which is a step above what was required in the past, which usually looked like a series of emails back and forth to Air Force, NOAA, and NASA, which was kind of a guessing game of who you needed to include as well. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm running short on time, so I'm going to ask 2 questions be submitted for the record. One dealing with specific regulations that you would love to see taken off the books. Second, since this is a committee on innovation in this space, some of the workforce challenges that you all are seeing and trends and how we can address that on the front end. But I'm going to give my last 30 seconds to you, Mr. Goldman. My district, speaking broadly, emergency departments and first responders are having to invest upwards of $15 million per county, and I represent 12, in building out an updated emergency communication system. Can you touch on the work that SpaceX is doing in addressing those first responder communications and where that might be a good alternative?
Yeah, we don't need the same sort of ground infrastructure to be built out. We're already there. We already have coverage. So you don't need to do that initial huge, we're kind of already done the huge investment up front. And we can, just with the deployment of user equipment, we can come in. And we're already actually working with a lot of first responders in Florida to do that. And I'm happy to work with your office to see what we can do specifically in your district.
Excellent. With 3 minutes, seconds over.
Okay, thank you.